Fred West was born on September 29, 1941, in Muchmarkel, Herefordshire. He was the second of 6 children born to Walter and Daisy West. The family lived a modest life, with Walter working as a farm laborer. Fred's early years were marked by poverty and hardship. Fred claimed that his father taught him various forms of deviant behavior from a young age. According to Fred, his father encouraged him to engage in bestiality and other disturbing acts. Fred also suffered severe head injuries in 2 separate incidents during his adolescence, which some experts believe could have contributed to his violent tendencies. At school, Fred was considered a slow learner and left at the age of 15. By his late teens, Fred had developed a reputation for being a troublemaker, but his behavior would soon escalate to much more sinister activities. Fred's early life was a precursor to the horrors he would later commit, serving as the foundation for his criminal behavior. Fred West married Catherine Rena Costello in 1962. Rena was a Scottish woman with a troubled past of her own. She brought her daughter, Charmaine, from a previous relationship into the marriage. Rena and Fred had a tumultuous relationship from the start, marked by frequent arguments and physical abuse. Despite this, they went on to have a daughter together, Anna Marie, in 1963. Fred's violent behavior escalated during this period, and he began to show signs of his future criminal tendencies. By 1967, Rena had had enough and left Fred, taking the children with her. However, she eventually returned, unable to support herself and the children on her own. Fred's marriage to Rena came to a tragic end in 1971 when she disappeared under mysterious circumstances. It was later revealed that Fred had murdered her and buried her body in a field. Fred West met Rosemary Rose Letts in early 1969. Rose was just 15 years old at the time and Fred was 27. Despite the significant age difference, the two quickly formed a close relationship. Rose came from a troubled background herself, with a history of physical and sexual abuse by her father. This shared experience of abuse seemed to bond the couple, and they soon moved in together. Rose became pregnant with Fred's child in 1970, and they decided to move to 25 Cromwell Street in Gloucester. Fred and Rose married in 1972, and their partnership in crime began to take shape. Rose was not just a passive participant, she actively encouraged and participated in Fred's violent acts. The couple had a total of 8 children together, creating a large and chaotic household. Together, they created an environment of fear and brutality. 25 Cromwell Street became the epicenter of Fred and Rose West's criminal activities. The house, with its unassuming exterior, concealed unimaginable horrors within its walls. The couple used the property to carry out their sadistic fantasies, turning it into a prison for their victims. They created a series of soundproofed rooms and secret spaces where they would torture and murder their victims. The Wests targeted vulnerable young women, often luring them to the house with promises of work or accommodation. Once inside, the victims were subjected to unspeakable acts of violence and sexual abuse. Fred and Rose would then kill their victims and bury their bodies in the cellar or garden. Over the years, they murdered at least 12 young women, although the true number may never be known. Despite the constant comings and goings at 25 Cromwell Street, the Wests managed to avoid detection for many years. The Wests' children were not spared from the abuse. The disappearance of Heather West in 1987 marked the beginning of the end for Fred and Rose West. Heather was one of the Wests' own children, and her sudden disappearance raised suspicions among her siblings. They were told by Fred and Rose that Heather had gone to work at a holiday camp, but they did not believe this story. Over the years, the children had endured constant abuse and had learned to be wary of their parents. In 1992, one of Heather's siblings confided in a friend about their fears for Heather's safety. This friend alerted the authorities, prompting an investigation into Heather's disappearance. The police initially treated the case as a missing persons inquiry, but as they delved deeper, they began to uncover disturbing evidence that suggested foul play. In early 1994, the police obtained a search warrant for 25 Cromwell Street. The police discovered human remains buried in the garden and cellar, leading to the immediate arrest of Fred and Rose West. The investigation into Heather's disappearance had inadvertently uncovered a house of horrors. The arrests of Fred and Rose West in 1994 marked a pivotal moment in the investigation. Fred was initially charged with multiple counts of murder, while Rose faced charges of assisting in the disposal of bodies. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that Rose had been an active participant in the murders, and she was subsequently charged with multiple counts of murder as well. Fred and Rose were held in custody as the police continued their search of 25 Cromwell Street. The couple's home was meticulously combed for evidence, and the remains of several more victims were uncovered. Fred West initially cooperated with the police, providing detailed confessions to several of the murders. However, he later retracted his statements, complicating the investigation. Despite this, the evidence against him was overwhelming. The trial of Fred and Rose West began in October 1995 and was one of the most high-profile criminal cases in British history. Fred never stood trial. He committed suicide in his prison cell on January 1, 1995, by hanging himself with a makeshift rope. His death meant that he never faced justice for his crimes, leaving many questions unanswered. Rose West, however, went to trial, facing 10 counts of murder. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence, including testimonies from surviving victims and detailed forensic analysis. The trial lasted for 7 weeks, during which the jury heard harrowing accounts of the abuse and murders carried out by the Wests. Rose's defense team attempted to portray her as a victim of Fred's influence, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. On November 22, 1995, Rose West was found guilty of all 10 counts of murder. She was sentenced to life imprisonment with a recommendation that she never be released. The convictions of Fred and Rose West brought some measure of justice for their victims and their families. The discovery of the West's crimes had a profound impact on the Gloucester community. The revelation that such horrific acts had been committed in their midst was a shocking and traumatic experience for many residents. The once quiet and unassuming neighborhood of Cromwell Street was thrust into the national spotlight, forever altering its identity. Local residents struggled to come to terms with the fact that they had lived alongside such evil for so many years. Many felt a sense of guilt and disbelief that they had not recognized the signs of the West's crimes. The community rallied together in the wake of the discovery, offering support to the victims' families and each other. The house at 25 Cromwell Street was eventually demolished in 1996. The site was turned into a pathway, a symbolic gesture to help the community move forward from the horrors that had taken place there. The case of Fred and Rose West has been extensively studied by psychologists and criminologists in an attempt to understand the factors that contributed to their horrific crimes. Both Fred and Rose came from abusive backgrounds, which likely played a significant role in shaping their violent behavior. Fred's early exposure to deviant behavior and Rose's experience of sexual abuse by her father created a toxic foundation for their later actions. Experts have also considered the impact of Fred's head injuries on his behavior. Traumatic brain injuries have been linked to increased aggression and impulsivity, which may have exacerbated Fred's violent tendencies. The social environment in which the Wests operated also played a role in their ability to commit their crimes undetected. The transient nature of their victims, often young women who were estranged from their families, made it easier for the Wests to avoid detection. Understanding the psychological and social factors that contributed to the West's crimes is crucial in preventing similar cases in the future. While the story of Fred and Rose West is one of unimaginable horror, it is important to remember the victims who suffered at their hands. Each of the young women who lost their lives was an individual with hopes, dreams, and loved ones. Their lives were tragically cut short by the West's depravity, and their memories deserve to be honored. The victims included vulnerable young women, some of whom were estranged from their families or struggling with personal issues. They were lured to 25 Cromwell Street under false pretenses, only to be subjected to horrific abuse and murder. Memorials have been erected to honor the victims and provide a place for the community to grieve. These memorials serve as a poignant reminder of the human cost of the West's crimes and the importance of remembering those who were lost. Remembering the victims is not just about honoring their memory, but also about ensuring that their stories are not forgotten. The case of Fred and Rose West offers many lessons for society. It underscores the importance of vigilance and the need for robust systems to protect vulnerable individuals. The failure to recognize the signs of abuse and violence in the West household allowed their crimes to go undetected for far too long. This highlights the need for better training and awareness among social workers, law enforcement, and the community. One of the key lessons from this case is the importance of early intervention in cases of abuse. Providing support and intervention for individuals who have experienced abuse can help prevent the cycle of violence from continuing. The case also emphasizes the need for effective communication and coordination between various agencies. Improving information sharing and cooperation between these agencies is crucial in preventing similar cases in the future.